to monetize it, and that is give the content away for free, but give them the relevant advertising as well. We had one more question at the back.
Mine was the same as his.
Oh, okay.
Dom?
Yep.
Would you still recommend a big, fat, hairy, audacious goal?
Undoubtedly. And Neville actually taught me about big, fat, hairy, audacious goals. And so in the last 4 months, we've made 4 investments in internet companies. Only 2 days ago, we signed a joint venture to sell legal wills online. You may think, legal wills, why would anyone want to buy legal wills? Well, when someone gets married, has children, or goes overseas, are the times where they, and I think everyone here is maybe slightly younger, slightly too young to think about wills, but I think once you get to that sort of, maybe that next level, and the reason I love that business is you create once and you sell many times. It is such a scalable model, and that's why I love the internet. And tomorrow it's going to, well, I can talk about it because we're going to be lodging before the market opens. We're just launching a bid for a fund, an investment fund that we're in the process of taking over, which will give us a lot more cash to basically make a lot more investments in Australia. So I believe that we've got the VC market, but really what VC market in Australia, really it's pathetic compared to most places in the world. Private equity won't touch small companies, so where else is there? So with this fund and positioning ourselves as a venture accelerator where we'll get in, put in some cash, but roll up our sleeves and actually help grow the business, that is the gap in the marketplace. What other companies are actually doing that in the Australian marketplace? Not that many. So that's the gap. So happy to speak to you about your upstart as well.
So the biggest lesson you've learned?
Biggest lesson, actually, this is a, there's been numerous lessons, and the 2 core lessons coming out of Opus Prime and Prime Media. And when we listed the company, I was a paper millionaire, whatever the hell that means.
No, you're multi-millionaire.
Multi-millionaire, whatever. I mean, it's all the paper, really. And I made all of these friends. All of these friends I didn't know I had just emerged out of the woodwork. When I lost it all, it was actually one of the most eye-opening experiences. I truly learned who my friends were and who were not. And people who I thought would be there for me were not, and those that I didn't even expect were actually there for me. So, learning number 1 is you actually learn who your friends are, because money actually does sometimes change people's perceptions. I don't know why, I guess it's just human nature. And the second rule that I've learned, and that I'll always do this, is always, as an entrepreneur, always take money off the table. And I know the business is going to be big, it's going to be sold for $1 billion to Google. Why would you want to sell down some equity now? And I tell you, sell down some equity. Sell down, and like earlier today I met with Matthew Rockman, who was one of the founders, or co-founders of Seek. And we were just talking about selling down, and he said right throughout the process, from when they were a private company, from when Packet got in to when they listed, he basically sold down, and when he sold down and the share price went up 40 or 50%, he said, I woke up and I thought I was a complete idiot. Why was I basically selling down and the share price is going up? Only now does he realise, when all the stocks are basically plummeted, that he's in fact made the right decision. So, as entrepreneurs, always take some money. It doesn't need to be 100% of your equity, but take some money off the table.
Dom, what about the issue that, when you do sell down in that process, especially during capital raising, if you're not putting in additional money yourself as an entrepreneur, most of those investors turn around and go, whoa, hang on a second, why are you doing that? Same thing as why you buy through Opus Prime.
Yeah, the question was around when there's a next round, they'll want you to put some money in. Undoubtedly, in the first maybe round or so, you'll need to, basically, you'll need to put some skin in the game. Investors love it when the entrepreneur has not only put in sweat equity, but has also put in some of their own cash. Even if they've had to borrow it off their parents or leverage it off their credit card, because the investor knows that they've got some skin in the game. They've got some, what is called, hurt money. But in subsequent rounds, it's actually, the investors find, if you basically say, you know what, I want to basically get a deposit for a house. I just want to get some money, pay off all my credit cards. The investor will look at it and say, you know what? Here's $250,000, take it off the table, pay off part of your house, pay off all your credit cards, because from that perspective, the investor knows that you'll be 150% focused on running the company, and you won't have to worry about chasing your tail and paying your credit cards and dealing with all that financial bullshit. So at least you've got some financial stability that gives you the focus to focus on the business, which is what they want you to do.
So how would you have done it without Opus being there?
What I would have done was just, notwithstanding the market, notwithstanding the directors of Destra, I just would have sold some shares and not worry about what people say. Because my shares were actually out of escrow for 6 years and I never sold. And in hindsight, I should have taken a couple $1 million off the table here and there. Was there one more question?
One more?
One more.
So at the moment you're the director of the ASX company, and tomorrow morning you're going to launch a bid for another company so that you can have a fund of $100 million. Invest in
the fund's not as big as $100 million. But it's actually our private company is taking over a listed company, and then using that fund, and at some point we'll go out there and raise some more money. At some point we'll actually relist it. It's a bit like what some private equity firms, they'll buy an asset, they'll bring it in-house, get it private, really focus on growing it, and then relist it again when the markets are favourable. So it's, in a way, it's doing similar things to what Packer and Murdoch do all the time.
Are you going to invest in computer companies, or do you have any idea?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, because I know there'll be a bunch of questions on this. Our investment criteria is actually quite specific these days. We only focus on upstarts, and when I say upstart, what does it mean? It's a business that's been running for at least 12 to 24 months, has got a product, preferably some customers with some revenues coming through, not necessarily profitable, but getting onto that curve. Internet businesses only that are highly scalable, low touch, and make money when you sleep. They're the kinds of internet companies that we focus on. And I'm happy to talk about that in a bit more detail on a one-to-one basis. I think we've got time for one more question.
You've just travelled the world looking around for 5 years, etc. Considering that, what can you say about what you've seen in the last 3 to 6 months, and how the world is at the moment with the current economic crisis, and what you're going to do about all that?
Yeah. I just came back from the Web 2.0 conference in New York, and the big thing there was social media. But social media, and one of the big things around it, I mean, there's all this talk of social media and how businesses can use it, but there wasn't really a measurement in place. So they've now built some models that actually help you measure the effectiveness of social media, which then, from an ROI perspective and selling to corporates, actually just opens up that opportunity. I think that's where there's a gap in the marketplace. There's a whole bunch of firms in the US that I met that all they do is help build businesses, like traditional corporates, using social media. There's like a handful of companies doing it in Australia, so upcoming entrepreneurs, that's a current gap in the market. In terms of the current financial crisis, I mean, I'm not a Buffett, so I can't really provide too much advice, but what I will say is most people today are frightened. The best time to start a company, the best time to build a company is today. When most people are frightened, and that's what separates us entrepreneurs. Whether the market's good or the market's bad, we get out there and we do it. And the best time to do it is when the market's down, because most people are afraid and they're not doing it, and you will have less competition. Sure, funding will be hard to get. So leverage your 3Fs, your friends, families and fools, in investing in your first round. Leverage your credit cards, but get your business started, and get it started today.
All right. Thank you, Dom. Thank you very much for that really honest talk. It was really, really wonderful, and I really enjoyed it. I'm just thinking about all the points he was talking about, going around. So thank you. Once again, I'm sorry about the tech issue.